Hi everyone, this is John. This is the first time you're seeing me solo on my new webcam and laptop. Over the weekend, on Sunday night, I filmed a book review of Henry Steele Commager's The American Mind with two good friends of mine, Peggy from the History Shelf and Sharon from the channel Sharon Goforth, which I also filmed on this camera. But this is the first time you're seeing me all by my lonesome. So I wanted to take the opportunity to share a few books that I found a few weeks ago at a nearby charity shop. I picked up around a dozen books, and unlike some other bookstores in maybe more urban parts of the city, well, I don't really live in a city, so my point is that this store doesn't exactly get a lot of traffic. So it's one of those places where you can go 2 or 3 times a year and pretty much be certain that you're picking up anything that you might happen to be interested in. So I used that opportunity to go. It was sometime in probably June. Let me just show you what I got. I want to start off with four volumes of books that all come from Reader's Digest, actually. I don't know how I feel about these. This one I like the most. These are just classics, so classics I'm not sure I owned in any other form, so I wanted to just pick up. This is Willa Cather's O Pioneers. And I don't exactly know what I feel about the Reader's Digest presentation. It is certainly sturdy. That's that's true. And there's something nice about the print. They also have these occasional sort of, it just very much reminds me of like a primer that you would read when you were in 2nd grade, like See Sally Run, See Pete Run, that sort of thing. Maybe that's just me being discriminatory, I don't know. But I also have this volume of Hawthorne's Twice Told Tales. Same thing, I think you get the occasional illustration. That's not the greatest illustration in the world, but there you go. I also like that the print happens to be a little bit bigger in these. So for those of us who are already halfway blind, these are easy to read even at night. Alright, third one. Arthur Conan Doyle's The Return of Sherlock Holmes. This is just some of the short stories. It's about, a dozen, maybe 14 short stories. Return of Sherlock Holmes right there. They all have that nice sort of enameled hard paper. And the fourth one is Mark Twain's The Innocents Abroad. With, again, maybe. Yep, illustration. Looks like a Gothic cathedral of some kind. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how many of these I plan on reading. That goes for the Reading Digest volumes and the books as a whole. But I had been holed up in my house for about 3 months for obvious reasons, when I just decided to go out and do some book shopping and get some retail therapy. So I may have bought a few things that I will probably never end up reading. But I have them if I want to. Next, is, I think, a writer most people will recognize, Bruce Catton. This is The Coming Fury. This is part of another trilogy. This is not his famous trilogy that has Stillness at Appomattox at the end. That's another trilogy that he wrote. This is part of the bicentennial history of the Civil War, which is another trilogy that he wrote in the early 60s. In fact, this is volume 1 that came out in 1961, which of course was the centennial year of the outbreak of the war. And as you can probably tell by the title, this is all about the lead up to the war. I think it starts off with the Democratic National Convention in April of 1860, and the issues and the driving debates that led up to Fort Sumter. So this was something I was completely not expecting to see at the store. For some reason, I always associate Wallace Stegner as a novelist, and of course he was, but I guess he wrote at least a few books of nonfiction. And I think I knew that when I saw this, but I was certainly not expecting to see this anyway. Trying to find when this was published. Maybe in the 50s sometime. This is Wallace Stegner's Beyond the 100th Meridian, John Wesley Powell and the Second Opening of the West. For those of you who may not know, John Wesley Powell was a soldier, an academic, and an explorer who did a lot of traveling in the American West. Most famously, took a 3-month long trek along the Mississippi River in 1869. He was probably the most famous director of the U.S. Geological Survey, and went on to direct the ethnological studies at the Smithsonian. And he also revised and proposed a lot of policies for the treatment of how Western land should be treated, considering that it's so different from much of what the U.S. was used to, east of the Mississippi River. So, nonfiction by Wallace Stegner. This is definitely something that I will read. Let's see. What's next? Okay. Something else I wasn't quite expecting to find. Vintage International. I always buy these, no matter. I'll show you these things. No matter if I recognize the author or the title or not, I just pick them up. And I have to say, this is not a title I recognized or a writer I recognized, but it is supposed to be an account of some of the things that happened during the Vietnam War. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this guy, Michael Herr, wrote, is it Apocalypse Now or Full Metal Jacket? I think he wrote Full Metal Jacket and narrated Apocalypse Now, the film from the 80s, if I remember correctly. But this was published in I think 1968. So yes, I always pick these up. They usually tend to prove themselves to be pretty good. All right. So a novel, Rule Britannia, by another writer who needs no introduction on YouTube. And this is one of her last novels, I think, written in the early 70s. And it could very well be a... looks like it could almost be a first edition. I'll read you the second paragraph of the inside flap. When England drops out of the European common market, that could never happen, right? And forms an alliance called the US-UK with the United States, American Marines are landed in Cornwall to protect the English from invasion by a foreign power. But there is nothing to protect the Marines from Madam, an ancient retired actress, her brood of adopted boys, and the Cornish locals she urges to civil disobedience. I think most people can't name two novels by Daphne du Maurier. I happen to have a book that has three of her novels. It's just a huge 1,000-page thing, one of which, of course, is Rebecca. But I've never read it. I've never read Rebecca since high school, but remembered really, really enjoying it. So as soon as I saw this, I picked it up. Next up is a book of essays and sketches by Mark Twain. They are sub-organized by topic. The young Mark Twain, Twain in the American scene, Twain in human nature, Twain and the learning process, Twain the traveler, etc. It also has in here the extended essay, starting on page 307, Is Shakespeare Dead? His contribution to the Shakespeare controversy. But also reviews and considerations of writers, looking at an 8-page essay on William Dean Howells right now. So these run the gamut from serious to literary to, of course, being Mark Twain comic. All right, just 3 more to go. For whatever reason, I don't think I ever got a copy of this book until now, of course. But this was in pretty much mint condition, so I picked it up. It's from Scribner. It's Watership Down by Richard Adams. Can't tell you too much about it that you wouldn't already know, other than the fact that I haven't read it yet. So, hopefully I'll change that soon. I love these kinds of books, these, don't know much about, or the even more condescending Idiot's Guide to. Some people might think I'm an idiot about some things, maybe all things, I don't know. Hopefully I know more about the Bible than the general audience for this book, but I still love to read these kinds of things to see what they include and what they leave out. This is Don't Know Much About the Bible, Everything You Need to Know About the Good Book But Never Learned by Kenneth C. Davis. If I'm not mistaken, Kenneth C. Davis did a series of books like this. Let me see. Yeah, he did Don't Know Much About History, Don't Know Much About Geography, Don't Know Much About the Civil War, and maybe some others as well. This is published in 1998. And one last thing, I just added to my stack when I was on the way out. Not exactly sure how interested I am in this, but this is Winchell, Gossip, Power, and the Culture of Celebrity by Neil Gabler. And of course, the Winchell, if you're old enough, you'll know who Winchell is. That's Walter Winchell, the famous newspaper columnist. And there's a funny story about how I learned who Walter Winchell was. One of my mother's famous, one of my mother's most favorite singers is Billy Joel. And in Billy Joel's song, it's a song called "We Didn't Start the Fire." And the entire song's lyrics is just a long list of events, people, writers, famous names from the 20th century. And he name checks in that song Walter Winchell. And I was going through the lyrics of that song, making sure, the nerdy 16-year-old that I was, making sure that I knew everything and everyone in it, or at least what they were. And the only thing I didn't know in the entire song was who Walter Winchell was. So I ran to the internet and looked him up and learned more about him. And had never seen, in the next 20 years, a biography dedicated to him. But now I have one. So those are my 12 books I found last month at the charity shop. Let me know if you've read any of them or are interested in hearing me talk about any of them. And until then, I will see you next time. Bye.